Hi everybody, I'm Gwendolyn Sterk of Sterk Family Law, and I'm privileged today to have Kristin Doonan with me.
Hello.
Welcome to our office.
Thank you.
Kristin is with us because she has an autistic child, and she's going to talk about the experience she's had as parenting an autistic child. So Kristin, can you tell us a little bit about your experience? Was this a child that you was born to or adopted, and a little bit of your history?
Carlee was adopted when she was almost 2 years old. So we knew immediately that she had delays. And so when she came home, we started her in an early childhood program. And then we started discovering that the other families that we had adopted with whose kids were also delayed, because that was to be expected from coming from an orphanage.
Sure.
She came from Russia, had been in an orphanage. We started finding that those other kids were progressing a little quicker than Carlee was.
Okay.
And so then we, within the early childhood program, we had her screened, and they suggested autism.
Okay, so then that is the early intervention program?
That was the early intervention
the EIP.
program. Yes.
And so that's a program that's available to parents up to age 3, correct?
Correct.
And so she had that therapy, and you can get that in a facility, or they can actually have the therapist come out to the home?
We did a little of each.
Okay.
At the time, because she's 22 now, ABA was just
I got it.
starting.
The standard's a little different.
Yeah.
And that can be provided through state funding, or your insurance might be able to assist that, but that is something the state wants to see the children get involved with. Is that correct? So then when she completed the early intervention process, before she started that, or when she reached age 3,
yes,
did they then engage in testing?
Yes, and then they put her in an early childhood preschool placement after testing started.
And that testing is what we would call an IEP, or an individualized education plan, is that correct?
Yes.
And so then once she got the IEP, she was able to attend preschool through the public school system, is that correct?
Yes.
And there was no cost for that, because she was as though she was a student in the public school.
Yes, exactly.
And then she stayed with that IEP, and then did they put her in the public school system that she would eventually go to grade school in?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
During that time, we did end up moving between kindergarten and first grade.
Okay.
And we moved, the laws changed a little bit. We moved from Iowa to Illinois. We had to have her retested and re-diagnosed in order for her to get in the right program.
Now, I understand that under federal law, though, they have to acknowledge the IEP, because although these are individual education plans in the state school system, it is a federal program, so they do have to allow the transfers to occur.
Yes.
But when you get to the transferring school has the ability to retest or replace or reevaluate. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so then you had that experience, and then she stayed in the special education program.
Yes.
Throughout her education to what age?
She stayed in, well, all the way until she graduated. She continued to have her IEP and have accommodations. But she was only in kindergarten in a self-contained classroom. Starting in first grade, she was in a program where she was in a resource room for half of her day, and in the regular classroom for half of her day, all through elementary.
So that's referred to as a little bit of a blended program.
Yes.
So before that, she was a non-blended, which more individualized attention to her.
Yeah, a little more therapy-based.
Got it. And so then as she finished high school, for special needs children to have an IEP, they can continue in the educational system past normal graduation age. Is that
until
correct?
the age of 22.
And so she completed that and then went through that entire program.
She did not do the entire program because she interviewed and qualified for a program called Project Search.
Okay.
And Project Search, she became an intern through her school district, but in the hospital setting. And in the hospital setting, it was a job training situation. When she graduated from Project Search, she went in with the agreement that upon graduation from Project Search, she graduates out of receiving those services.
And Project Search is really a way for her to have an educational program to get her into the workplace, correct?
Correct. It was job training on site.
Got it. And so then at age 18, she was able to qualify then also for Social Security disability.
Yes.
And then you were able to supplement it at that point in time with a job and then getting her into the workforce.
Yes.
If you have a parent that is, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the 22 plus time period, but you have a parent that is just getting the news that their child is autistic or has some kind of developmental delay, whether it be physical or mental, what would you say to them, having gone through this entire process?
My advice would be day by day.
Okay.
It's very overwhelming when you first get the diagnosis, and it's hard to not look to the future and look toward high school graduation.
Okay.
I think Carlee's graduation and how it all played out is much different than what I might have pictured when I first heard the diagnosis.
Got it.
She's in leaps and bounds exceeded what my expectations were.
That's fantastic, right? And some parents have that experience and some parents don't.
Correct.
You know, some parents still have that
Correct.
situation where they have a child that, you know, is not able to soar as Carlee has
Correct.
been able to and get into the workforce, etc. But at the same time, whether or not they're going to be able to get in the workforce or not, you would say to every parent it's day by
Yes,
day.
day by day.
And I also would think that your advice would stem with the educational system to be very proactive in
Very.
that process. And why is that?
Well, education, like many things, is bound by money.
Right?
So the districts oftentimes are considering, well, this is what we can provide within our budget.
Right.
A lot of times there's a lot of options out there that the district actually would have to pay for if you bring them up to the district.
Correct,
and suggest them.
And some of
So-
that may be going into a private facility or a private
Yes.
educational school that's outside of the district administering it.
Yes.
And that's money. So money is a problem, and that's
Right.
what you have to pursue.
Correct.
So really being in there hands-on as a parent and fighting for your child
Yes.
to get through, to either have an advocate, or if the advocate doesn't work, getting into the legal process, although that
Right.
brings on a whole nother layer of issues.
Right.
But making sure that you're there on a regular, consistent basis.
Very
Would you
true.
agree?
Yes, but knowing what might be the best match for your child and being able to present that to the district is key, because it won't often be presented to you.
Understood. And then I know that a lot of parents that we've experienced over our length here as a practice and over practicing law for 30 years now is that transition time from that 22 forward.
Mm-hmm.
How is that? What would you say to a parent going through that struggle?
Again, day by day.
Okay.
And it is different each day. Sometimes I remind myself that some of the things we're going through are the typical things that a young adult seeking employment is going through. And then some of it is, the autism, that things are a little bit more of a struggle. But I very much have tried to empower Carlee to be able to share her diagnosis with people and know as much about it as possible, so that she can advocate for herself,
right?
So that she can be comfortable talking about it, and usually she does a very good job of putting people at ease with that and saying, this is who I am, and
it's okay.
And it's okay, and sometimes knowing her limitations, and sometimes, like I said before, she goes beyond those limitations and figures things out.
And then to the parent who then ends up with the child at home every day at that point in time, it could be that reality as well.
Yes.
You would give the same advice, right?
Yep.
Day by day.
Day by day.
And so there are facilities out there, there is resources, and in terms of resources, what would you say to a parent with a child with special needs on getting outside help?
Doing the research.
Okay.
Knowing what's available, talking to other parents. The more you can network with other parents and find out what's out there and have a support group. I've met so many parents through Carlee's friends, through working with activities that she's gotten involved with the park district, and doing their special rec programs, and finding other parents whose kids are somewhat at the similar functioning level as her, and finding out what they're doing. Truly opens my eyes. I come across things all the time that, even now, while she's 22 years old, I'm constantly saying, what? That exists? I didn't know this.
Right. So getting out there, getting that information is the best advice that you can give to someone.
Absolutely.
And it's part of life, right?
Absolutely.
We all have different things to bear and different experiences, and it's going to be okay.
For sure.
Well, I appreciate the time, and I appreciate you coming out. If you're listening to this podcast today, I want you to understand something, is that we service children with special needs, and we want to make sure that parents can empower themselves moving forward, because there are resources available. If you are someone who works in special needs, I would wish that you would reach out to our office, because we are starting a special needs networking organization that can help us all get together to be able to share this information for parents such as yourself.
Great.
So thanks again for your time.
Yes, you're welcome.